This episode is presented by the Visit Cedar City Bryan Head Tourism Bureau. Discover the art of adventure at Utah's gateway to the parks. Cedar City is within a few hours' drive from 6 different national parks and monuments, and only 30 minutes from fresh snow at Bryan Head Resort. Check out visitcedarcity.com to plan your next trip. This episode is sponsored by the Cedar City Business and Innovation Center, dedicated to supporting local businesses and entrepreneurs. It provides resources and services aimed at fostering business creation, growth, and retention. The center features the makerspace, where entrepreneurs and small businesses can have access to 3D printers, video production, and photography equipment, t-shirt printing, and more. Whether you're starting a new venture or looking to expand an existing one, the Cedar City Business and Innovation Center offers the tools and guidance to help you succeed. To learn more and get involved, visit innovationcenter.cc. Hello and welcome to another episode of Explore Local Podcast, presented by Visit Cedar City Bryan Head in partnership with Cedar City Iron County Economic Development. This is produced by Dallas Smith Media, and I'm your host, David Johnson, Economic Development Director for Cedar City and Iron County. All right, and today we have John DiAntonio with the Utah Shakespeare Festival. John's the Artistic Director for the Utah Shakespeare Festival. John, welcome.
Thanks, David. Glad to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you. So tell us, what is the Artistic Director of the Utah Shakespeare Festival?
Sure. So the Artistic Director is in charge of the artistic vision of the festival. So selection of shows, helping with strategic planning of where are we going as an organization, a key part of hiring. So of our 50 actors in the season, our directors that lead each production, designers, lead. There's a lot of management involved. So as a supervisor of overseeing the education director, our production team, our production manager, and then also running our new play development program.
Yeah, and you just came on a year ago now? Is that right?
Yeah, going on a year and a half.
Okay.
I think May 6th will be my 1.5 year mark.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you here. Last year I got to see you in, what was it?
The Taming of the Shrew.
Taming of the Shrew. Thank you. Taming of the Shrew. I was thinking Much Ado About Nothing because that's my favorite play, and I kept wanting to go see it, and I never got to see it. So that's why Much Ado was coming to my mind. But Taming of the Shrew was so fun. You know, every time I see Taming of the Shrew, I think of Bruce Willis. Did you ever see Moonlighting?
Oh, okay.
They did like a little, there was an episode where it was like Taming of the Shrew version. Yes. I don't know why, but that was my first introduction actually to Taming of the Shrew.
I've seen the YouTube clip of it. Exactly.
Have you? Oh, you got to go back. Somehow find, I'm sure it's online, the full length of Taming of the Shrew. Yeah. But Taming of the Shrew, so you're artistic director, but you also get to have some fun in the plays too, right?
Yeah, and there's multiple reasons behind that choice. The main one, besides the fact that I did come up as an actor, so I've been in many Shakespeare shows and love being on stage. But the main one being new here was this opportunity to expedite that process of getting to know the audience, having a conversation starter out on the green to be like, hey, I'm about to go see the show, or I just saw it last night. I want to talk about it.
Right.
And Taming of the Shrew is one of those shows that there's always something to talk about.
Yeah.
And it was really wonderful. It really did that. And so I was really happy about that. But in addition, it gave me an opportunity to learn that space, that incredible Engelstad Theater, which it's challenging for an actor. I mean, 910 seats, and you need to be able to fill that with your voice effortlessly. And so it was really
enunciate. Good. That's what I remember from acting in high school.
Yeah, you bet.
Project.
Your projection, your consonants.
Yeah.
So to get to experience that was really helpful. And now, as I will now go to be in the director's seat this year for Macbeth, I can help, I think, the actors even more having experienced it from the inside.
Because you know the space, right?
Yeah.
Well, a part that I think is fun is that your wife got to be in that show with you.
Yes.
In fact, Dallas was just working on a promotional piece for the Utah Shakespeare Festival, and he was showing me his favorite clip out of the whole piece is you laying on the ground with your back tilted back and your wife's like pulling your hair. I can't remember what's going on in that scene. I'm sure you remember what's going on in that scene.
Yes, it's I can't forget that scene.
I'm sure you can.
That is the famous wooing scene. So where Kate and Petruchio meet. It's such a glorious scene, so beautifully written. It's one of the best romantic meeting scenes of all time. There's this huge build up to that moment when they first see each other. And, Petruchio thinks, oh, this is easy. I'm going to woo her, seduce her, charm her. And this is going to be a piece of cake. I'm a ladies' man. It's going to be a piece of cake. But then he quickly realizes, oh no, he's really met his match with Kate. And that moment is towards the second half of the scene where she's really running that scene. And she's proceeded to, stomp on his foot, jump on his back. At that point, she literally has him on the ground and I'm having my head yanked back. And I think, I'm trying to remember if the other characters have returned at that point, but her father and her other wooers might already be back and seeing me get my butt kicked.
So I think that's really great. I mean, Dallas brought it up on the screen for us. Look at that grin you have as you're trying to have a positive attitude.
It's all right. It's all good here. Totally in control. Everything's good.
And you know what's interesting? And I'm digressing here, but Taming the Shrew. I've read a lot of people talk about kind of almost the chauvinistic perspective that this man's going to tame this woman, but I've never gotten that from that. I've always gotten the opposite, is that there's this societal perspective that the men will tame the women, and this woman's out to show that that's not the case. They still fall for each other kind of through the tension. I don't know, maybe you might speak to your perspective on that. I just never I actually got the opposite message that we sometimes live in kind of this male dominant society, but this woman wasn't about to have any of that.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, she's the most powerful person in the play. I get the perspective fully, because I think what I would say is it's no doubt that the society that Shakespeare has created in that story in Italy, where they are at that time, it is a misogynistic society. It is flawed in that sense.
And he was speaking to that, right? He was acknowledging that historical perspective.
Absolutely. And it was historical, but Petruchio he's a smart guy. He's a rebel, and he's aware of what the society is. But he's a smart guy. And I think he recognizes that, just like he feels a little bit like an outsider, like this doesn't quite fit into society type human, because he's just got this wild imagination. He just thinks differently. Mm-hmm. And that's the beauty of when he meets Kate. He recognizes, oh, this is another person who isn't fitting into the society that is around her, to the boundaries that are being thrust on her. And hopefully I think she sees that in him as well. Eventually they're like, oh, well, maybe we can together create our own existence and sort of write our own rules of society. Yeah. If we can find a mutual respect, a mutual love, a mutual agreement. And then that's what a lot of the play is about. Yeah.
And that's what I get out of it. It's kind of that. It's called Taming of the Shrew because of that kind of historical perspective of taming the woman. Mm. But in truth, Petruchio is very much tamed him equally, if not more in some ways. Do you know what I mean? I got that mutual out of it of, bucking the stereotypes. That's kind of what I got out of it. Anyways, and they do it in a fun, entertaining way, as you could see.
No, I agree. That title is almost like what Baptista or what one of the suitors would label what the play is about. But I think from the perspective of Kate and Petruchio, they are both in their own way getting tamed, but they're both finding out, learning about themselves. They're both growing. They're both learning to sacrifice part of themselves for each other. Yeah. They're both, and they're, and then they're going to blaze their own trail in a way, I think.
There's almost an irony in the title in some ways, or however you want to phrase it. But so with that play, and I'm going to use that to lead into maybe some of the other things I want to talk about with your role as artistic director. It was very flamboyant, very almost circus-esque, right? The costuming, sets and things like that. Talk to me, and you can choose whichever direction you want to go in a play, and maybe you can use Taming the Shrew as an example if you want, or dive into anything else. As an artistic director, you're not really necessarily the one saying, this is exactly how I want it, or that's how I want it. You're working with all kinds of, for lack of a better word, artists that, whether it's clothing or set or performers or lights or whatever, you have all these artistic pieces. And when I hear artistic director, I think like branding. When you talk about vision, like what are we communicating through the visual and through the words and all of that. So talk to me about how that process goes in kind of determining that feel, because Taming of the Shrew has been done 1,000,001 different ways, 1,000,001 different sets, 1,000,001 different costumes. So how do you determine that and how do you go about it? Yeah,
absolutely. I think you summarized it nicely. The artistic director is more of the 30,000-foot view of the season as a whole. And then that person is hiring, along with the rest of the team, is hiring the director for each show. And the director will bring their own concept, their own setting for a time and place where we're going to set that show. There's certain themes, it's Shakespeare, so there's like infinite themes that are emerging in each show. And the director might say, you know what, for right now, I think I'm most interested in telling this story of this version of Taming the Shrew, this version of Much Ado, whatever it might be. And they'll lift up what's important to them from the beginning. Then we hire designers, and the beauty of theater is it's like one of the most collaborative art forms there is. You hire all these people that specialize in different disciplines. So you have your scenic designer who's going to create the scenic elements that you see where the actors are climbing on and what they're, what's creating the reality. Costume designer, creating those incredible looks. And like for Taming of the Shrew, Valerie, who directed the show, very much wanted to lean into the lightness of that, to find the lighter themes of that show. Because you can do a Taming of the Shrew that is dark, that is brutal, that is abusive. There are versions of that play that have been done like that. But she wanted to lean into the lighter side, almost commenting on it, satire style.
And I actually love that. Yeah. I love that approach to Taming of the Shrew, because to me, it kind of goes back to what we were just talking about what perspectives you get out of it. Because I've seen kind of the dark brooding versions from both the main characters. And I don't know, I like the lighter side. Maybe.
No, I'm with you. And she used, there's this thing called the induction, this play within a play, this introduction to the show. Where Christopher Sly is drunk and stumbles into a tavern, and they tell him this story. A group of players come in and say, we're going to teach him a lesson and we're going to tell him this story. It's usually cut. I understand why. It adds about 20 minutes to the show. And you don't necessarily need it, but she wanted to keep it because, again, it would give the framing device that you're talking about. Through teaching this guy a lesson, maybe we could all learn a lesson, something like that. So
actually, I'm really glad you bring that up, because that part does get cut out. And when you cut that part out, you do kind of lose some of the meaning and perspective that we were kind of talking about a moment ago from that. Yeah.
And it's always everything's like, you got to weigh everything. What's key though, if you keep it though, is that the actors who are then actors telling the story, they still need to invest fully in the story. You can't use it as an out saying, well, we're just actors telling a story, so we don't have to fully lean into this emotionally, or what do I want is my role? What am I feeling? What are my obstacles? You still need to lean in fully. And so we tried to do that. Hopefully we succeeded.
It's not, I know what you're saying, because you see some acting, and you see this a lot on some of the cheesy television shows, where it's kind of superficial acting.
It could become very wink, very, and there's some of that. I mean, there's some of that. It's Shakespeare. The audience is always present. The characters have asides where they literally turn out and talk to the audience. It's part of the beauty of Shakespeare. But I love so much about
how those are implemented versus, and I agree. That's what I love about Shakespeare. You go from this in-depth emotional, like when you're watching a show or a play and you forget that you're not in it. Right.
Yeah.
And then when they turn and they wink at you, you're like, oh yeah, I'm watching this. Right. It's just fun. One of the fun parts about it. So walk me through the process then in a play, and maybe pick one of your favorite, whether it's been at Shakespeare or it's been other places. As an artistic director, walk me through the process. And you kind of started to, when you talked about the director, but choosing all these themes.
Sure,
You hire the people and everything, but what's the fun nitty gritty of the costumes or the set and you know, and how that collaboration works. Do you see where I'm kind of getting at?
Yeah, I can I'll walk you through one of the shows that's in our 2025 season from like start to finish.
Sure,
like, so let's choose, so we're bringing back a musical this year, which is exciting.
Yeah.
A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder.
Yes. I have never gotten to see this, but people always rave about it.
Cool.
So.
Well, for those who don't know, I'll give you like the 2-sentence summary of what it's about, and then I'll talk you through sort of how that process went from start. And we're about to be in first rehearsal in a few weeks.
Sweet.
So the story is about a young man. He discovers that he is 8th in line to a great title and fortune. And he makes the very reasonable decision to knock off all those family members that stand in his way on the way to that fortune.
We don't condone this.
Yeah, we do not. Disclaimer, we do not. He does it all in the name of love. And part of the fun of the show is one actor will play all 8 of those family members. So you get to see an actor transform between all these different roles. So really fun show. So how that came about. So let's go way back to a year ago, or probably a year. And so at the Utah Shakespeare, we're trying to get it 2 years ahead as far as season selection. We already know the 26th season. I'm already starting to think about 27.
Yeah.
So year and a half ago, at least, we knew in talking with the staff, a goal was, we would like to bring a musical back. We did not have a musical in 24. That's okay. Musicals, though, can serve a very helpful purpose, which is they can bring in a clientele that maybe might not go to a Shakespeare, may be intimidated here or there, or they might, but it can bring in just a different group of people and then become a gateway in.
Yeah, broaden the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're lovely. And part of my goal as a repertory theater is to have a little bit of every genre. No doubt Shakespeare is our cornerstone, as it should be and always has been. But my hope is that we can have a little bit of every genre and be masters of all of it. And then someone can come and see all the shows and they can be like, holy cow, I just saw this incredible intimate musical. I saw this gritty drama. I saw, you know, so they can have the full gamut. So a musical is part of that. So we knew we wanted a musical. And then we were looking at various things. We were looking at what are the budgetary constraints of this year? What is a show that feels very USF? And this show, A Gentleman's Guide, clicked both those boxes. It's a contained show, so we needed a smaller musical for this year. There's only 10 to 11 actors, depending on how you do it, so it's a more contained cast size. I needed a show that also clicked a little bit of the farcical box. Ideally, we have a big comedy, a big farce in the season, and this is one of those musicals that also clicks that because it's part farce. And it's a beautiful show for this place. It's theatrical. It's loaded with imagination. Like I said, this you see an actor transform versus 8 different actors playing those 8 roles. You see, and that's what I mean by theatricality. You get to see something that only in the theater works.
And that's like 39 Steps last season. It was so fun.
Steps. Yeah. So, and then the music's great. It's very Gilbert and Sullivan, which our audience loves. So it was okay, this will be a good show for us. So anyway, we did that, and then it was like, okay, who's the director? And that's when Amanda Berg-Wilson came in. Amanda Berg-Wilson, I wanted this to be a very live feeling experience in the Randall Theater. And Amanda is a director I know who has done site-specific theater, has done immersive theater. So not to the extent, but a lot of people have heard of like Sleep No More, where you're walking within the story of Macbeth in New York. It was very popular for some time. Amanda has done versions like that. And I was like, ooh, I want this to have an immersive feeling to it in a way. And so we brought in Amanda. And so for her, then she brought a concept and she's like, this show is often done with projections that take us to the 40 locations we go to in the show. But she's like, well, what I want to do is I want to lean into, we're going to set this, the play is set in Edwardian period, like 1907. And she says, I want to set this in a London theater, the Lion Comique in 1907. And this is going to be an acting troupe telling this story. So we're really going to make it theatrical. We're going to see the troupe come out at the beginning and we're going to know they're transforming before our eyes. Fantastic. They're going to know the audience is there. The audience is live. They are part of it. They are the actual audience they're performing for. And so she'll bring that spirit. And so she's done that with all the choices she made. Then we brought in some incredible designers. So the costume designer who did Taming of the Shrew last year is going to do this show.
Oh, great. But with a different flair this time.
With a very different flair.
Yeah.
So this will feel a little more like 39 Steps in the sense that the actors have their base costume, but then they layer on for all the roles they're going to play.
And it's going to have that very kind of London.
Yeah.
I picture Sherlock Holmes when I picture that.
It's exactly that period. Yeah, exactly. So it'll have that feel, and it's murder. And so we'll have, there's a darkness to this play as well amidst all the farce and comedy. So it will have some of that dark mystery feel that comes with like Sherlock Holmes and whatnot. And so then we did that. And then all the rest of the designers, Joe Winarski's going to do the set. She's done like 20 years with us. The great Brad Carroll is going to be our music director. We decided because we want this live, he's going to be on stage playing piano throughout the show. So not just tracks playing from the speakers, but he's playing live. And not only is he playing piano live, he's recorded additional instrumentation. He's going to layer in over top with a foot pedal. So it's going to be like quite an incredible undertaking. And then we're there, and then we're on to casting. And so that's the next part of the process. And we create a breakdown of what are the needs of what we have. Okay, what are the past company members we might want to bring back that would be perfect for this or perfect for that? Who are the new people that we need to bring in? Yeah. Then we hold auditions, and I could talk more about that. And then we continue on with the design process where Amanda talks about her vision. And then a few months later, the designers present preliminary designs, renderings. People comment, oh, that might not work. Or logistically, are we thinking about this? Or what about the sight lines here? They make adjustments. A few months later, we present the final designs. Well,
and what's interesting, there's two design elements that I kind of want to briefly dive into is one, there's set, and then two, there's costuming. So I just went to where you guys store all of your set stuff. Remind me of the gentleman's name that oversees.
So sets, well, let's see. So Richard Gertain or Ben Homan or who did you?
It might have been Ben.
It was props and everything. It's kind of out here where we're I guess props is what I went and saw. He called it the room of requirement. Yes. Yeah.
And he could just, in his computer, I guess during COVID, they're like, let's really organize this. And they organized every little prop and put it all on a spreadsheet in a computer. So he could type in London 1900s and find stuff related to that. I mean, full body, like knight's armor that was in there.
Yep.
And I'm like, hey, do you know you have the helmets on both those knights switched? And he's like, oh yeah, that must have happened. I'm way too like observant on things. But we were going through all these things. He's got old pianos, all these things. And so I'm pontificating way more than I should. So when you're creating that design, how do you coordinate with something like the room of requirement to decide, hey, here's what we need?
Yeah. I mean, first props to Ben. And Marielle, they're incredible. How organized that place is. That it's an embarrassment of riches, right? You walk around there and you're just like, yep, we can use that. You don't have a chandelier that would be like late 1870s of course we do. We actually have 3 of them right here. You know what I mean? It's just absolutely incredible. It's
amazing.
What they have in stock. And so, they're wonderful. And so Amanda, it's all documented. So Ben, Amanda would say, I'm going to need these furniture pieces. Ben would say, well, look, this is what we have in stock. Does any of this work? And it might be like, oh yeah, those chairs work, but could we, in terms of the fabric, could we change on those seats? Could we do some? And absolutely, we could change.
And they just reupholster it like it's nothing,
the purple or whatever's needed. So they can do it all. But that oh my gosh, like what we have in that stock is just absolutely incredible.
Well, and he was showing me, I guess the director at one point wanted this really ornate kind of like cabinet door or something. And he's like, that the wood, to find something like that's going to be impossible, and to handcraft that. So what he did was they took like paper plates and paper mache and then they painted it in a certain way. And when you looked at the door, like he showed me it, and I thought it was wood. I thought it was this ornate wood panel, and the way they created this vision. I think he said the director or whomever just gave him this picture and was like, make it look like this. And they're like, okay.
Yeah.
And it looks so much like it.
And then you pick up the thing and it's light as can be because it's foam or it's this or it's that. Yeah. They're amazing how they do that.
Yeah.
And they know just the right way to varnish or to paint to give it that look from a distance or up close even. Yeah.
Talk to me about the costuming, because like, from what I understand, the people who design your costumes aren't necessarily here, but the people who who actually sew them. You sew them here and put them together here. Talk to me about how that process works, because not everybody that does work for Utah Shakespeare Festival is actually here in Utah, right? You contract out for some of that?
So first of all, if y'all haven't done a tour, I'm just saying this to the world listening.
Yeah.
Make sure you do a tour, because you got to see the costume shop.
Yeah, it's the best part.
It's incredible. But we actually, so Jeff Leader, who is our costume shop director, has been here now for 40 years working for the festival, which is just unheard of. So like he has more institutional knowledge than anyone. He's seen it all. And he runs a shop of approximately 60 artisans there that are building the costumes.
Wow.
And they're coming in from all over the country. You're right. Our designers, they'll be in and out throughout the process. They will be present for part of it for costume fittings. When actors are coming in, they're like, oh, we got to make this adjustment here and there.
And they put the little drawings that he then puts on the walls all around the costume shop.
Incredible drawing. They're works of art.
Yeah.
They really are.
In and of themselves. Just the concept design is. Yeah.
And then this team of 60 people, Jeff's got quite a system that I can't fully, it's so complicated that I can't not explain, but there's teams dedicated to each show that's in the season. Each team might have 1 or 2 shows under their belt. And then the team is made up of different people, drapers, stitchers, different folks who are doing different responsibilities in the creation of the costumes. They create I can't remember what it's called, but like a template costume, or like an initial, just to make sure the fitting's correct.
The rough draft
version. And then they'll make the real thing. And you see those renderings, those sketches, and you're like, well, I'm sure it'll look kind of like that, but how are they going to actually make it look exact like that, that gorgeous? And then they do. Yeah. And like, I mean,
with no like patterns that you buy at Joann's or something, right?
They're making clothing. It's all built from scratch. I mean, much of it. We do have stuff in stock, but much of it is built from scratch. And so it's such a beautiful art form. I mean, Henry VIII last year, it was like stepping back to Henry VIII's court. I mean, because Bill Black, who did the designs, is just, I mean, he's done 20 plus seasons with us, and the attention to detail. I'm still a bit in awe of the quality level that our production team brings. Like it's just something that it's stunning. Yeah. And it's what our audience knows. It's what they've gotten used to, and they expect, as they should.
Yeah. That's one thing that I love about Utah Shakespeare Festival is, and Michael Barr and I spoke a little bit about this when he came on to the podcast, which we'll be posting here soon. But he talked about just what came out of this tiny little town, right? And that love of theater that was here, that just in the middle of southern Utah desert, right? High desert here. And it's really cool.
Michael Barr, not a nice guy. I wish he was just a little bit nicer of a guy, isn't he?
I know he could afford to be a little nicer.
He's a tough boss. He's a real tough. Yeah. No, he is the most beloved man in Cedar City. Yeah. And he's right. What is, I mean, I'm new, a year and a half in, but my whole life being a Shakespeare guy, I've always revered this place, and it always had a lure about it of like one of those meccas of Shakespeare, one of those places. Right. You have to go, you have to try to work there, you have to take it in. And so, Fred, and the team built that over decades. Yeah.
And I think part of that allure that you have to go, and Michael and I spoke a lot about this, so I won't digress too much on this, is not just the quality, but the camaraderie, so to speak, like the down to earth. Michael and I talked a lot about this, about how you can just come into town and talk to the actors when you go to eat after the play or whatever, and you can walk up to Michael and just chat about it, and you have the cool educational things the next morning to go more in depth about the play, and folks can ask questions directly. I mean, it's just so cool. When you're talking about that the musical that's gonna be immersive, the whole experience, both before you go and watch a show, during the show, after the show. I mean, immersive is something that I love about theater, but Utah Shakespeare Festival, I feel like, takes that to the next level.
That's the word for it. Yeah. It's immersive. Yeah. You can binge from 9 a.m. till 11 till midnight, on theater.
And not gain any extra weight.
No extra weight, no calories.
No headaches from staring at a screen.
It's cool. I mean, I think it's why people get so hooked on it. They leave filled up. It fills you up. I think a visit here in every way, right?
Yeah.
Your heart, but you've been provoked to think, and the discussion in the Grove is incredible. You're out on the green with your family, maybe, you know what I mean? I was out on the green. Like I brought my 3 little kids. We literally saw it like 80 times. Like we came like every night, and they just love it. And so you're making memories. And you're, it's Shakespeare, which requires a different level of lean in, which I love. You've got to lean into it. And frankly, I think it makes you smarter. I mean, it just does. Because it just requires more attention and more thought and more lean in. So it's a cool place.
Yeah. This is a random thought. I've always been, and this is totally left field here. Some of my favorite plays are the farces or the comedies. And I think it's because I always have felt like actors that can do comedy well are the best actors. Like if you look at, we'll name actors people know. You look at Jim Carrey, Robin Williams, right. Some of the most outlandish comedians, actors, but when they play a serious role, they are some of the most heart-wrenching actors, like the way the emotion that they convey through it. And I think that's why I kind of like those more, the more lighthearted plays, is because you actually get the mix of emotion. It's just not straight comedy slapstick the whole time. That's why I like Much Ado, right? You have some of the fun, light stuff, and Taming of the Shrew is the same way, but then you kind of get into this deeper stuff and things that really make you think. Anyways, a total digression, but I was just thinking about that.
I mean, they say if you're in a comedy, you treat it like a tragedy. You treat it like life and death. It's just going to work out in the end. There's going to be a wedding. We're going to come together. And the tragedy, you try to treat it like a comedy. You strive for hope, for lightness as much as you can, but it's not going to work out in the end. And so you kind of play the opposite of it in a way. And that goes, you treat Shakespeare sometimes like a new play, and you treat a new play like it's a classic. There's these sort of dichotomies of how you approach like something, which is kind of cool. I agree with you though. There's nothing like great comedians that can bring, they're funny as can be, but the reason they're funny is because they're approaching the material truthfully. They're still like, what does my character want in this moment? What is the reality of how I'm picking up this coffee cup? But it has to be in this silly setting. But at the end of the day, I need to drink, this water or whatever. So they'll find a way to still ground it, but keep it heightened and hilarious at the same time. Yeah. And when I mentioned Jim Carrey, I'm not talking about Ace Ventura, but
alrighty
then. I mean, but Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is incredible. Like, for example, like Jim Carrey, when he's brilliant in every way. He's very, he reminds me of Mike Doe in a way. Like, I don't know if you know Michael Doe from the season, but he was one of the clowns in 39 Steps.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I know exactly who you're talking about. That was so fun to watch him.
He just has a similar spirit, I think, in some ways.
And for those who, I don't know, Jim Carrey can sometimes be political. I'm not getting into any of that political, but like he's an example that I can use that most people know, where you've seen him. I mean, the Truman Show's kind of slapstick if you've seen that, but that really gets into the super silly and the super serious.
Beautiful.
And it just shows kind of this diversity of acting skill. In fact, 39 Steps, who was the woman that, not the
Bailey, with the other clown, or
the other clown? Yes, the other clown.
And what's Bailey's?
And she went to school here local, didn't she?
An SUU alum. Yeah, absolutely. We had several SUU alums in the company last year, which was just fantastic. Yeah, Bailey came up through the company, worked for the festival for a few years, then moved to Chicago. Worked with different companies there, did some Shakespeare, and then it was so cool. We were like, we need to bring back, we need to find our second clown. The part of the acting conundrum, we only have so many union contracts. We're by this point we knew, it has to be a non-union actor, but they're going to have to stand up with the rest of this cast that is all union. They're all like, they've got a lot of experience, and who can step up to that. And Bailey just blew us away. It was they'll be just fine.
I mean, I loved all the actors, don't get me wrong. But for me personally, Bailey stole the show. Like, she just blew me away, her versatility. I mean, all of those actors were playing multiple parts, her versatility it just cracked me up.
The Scottish father she played with. You couldn't understand a word that he said, and it was like so funny.
My gosh. It was great. And she could go from super silly to super serious. And the gentleman that you mentioned, Mike too, was very, they were all fantastic. I'm just like grinning ear to ear thinking about it. Sorry for those who didn't get to see it.
I met someone the other day, like their daughter, she said, my daughter went 9 times to see that show. I know. Like, that's awesome. Yeah.
My wife and I, my mother-in-law went, and then my wife and I went and saw it. And then we're like, we've got to bring the kids back. And the kids, my youngest is 7, and even my 7-year-old was just dying laughing and has talked about it since, just a fun experience, but.
That's so great. Oh, cool. I hear you. Yeah. You get those kids in young, get them hooked on theater. Yeah.
Well, okay. So that's where actually I wanted to go next is, I know a little bit what I've seen on the website. Tell me about what got you into theater. From what I understand, like it wasn't even on your radar until a certain point when you were in high school. Yeah,
that's funny. Yeah, you heard. Yeah. I didn't even know theater was a thing at all. So I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I come from a family of, what would it be? Is it left brain or right brain? But engineers, business people, medical people. I was a sports guy my whole life.
What kind of sports did you do?
Soccer was my big one. Okay, so I was a goalie, and I was pretty good and competitive. And so that was life. And, but I was a bit of a troublemaker, class clown. I was an artist. I always took art class and drew and painted and loved that. But I was a bit of a troublemaker. And when I was 16, I was getting in trouble. I was now on my 3rd English teacher. I'd been kicked out of two English classes. I was on the 3rd, and we would, just like most people do in high school, we were reading Romeo and Juliet or reading some of those Shakespeare plays. And I was reading all the roles and doing funny voices and not understanding all of what I was saying, but having a really good time doing it. And then Mrs. Bruno, my teacher, afterwards held me after for a second. And she said, John, I teach this other thing in addition to English. It's called theater, and you should try it next year. What is this thing? I don't know. I had a preconceived notion. That's not for me. And anyway, but decided, opened up the heart and the brain and said, let's give this a try, and signed up when I was 16 and instantly fell in love with it. So many aspects of it. It converted all of that energy, all of that like class clown need for attention. Yeah. But it also, a lot of people don't get, until you do a play, you don't get this experience, this idea of the ensemble. When you tell a story together, you tell a play or you do a musical together or something, you get to know those folks in a very quick but very deep way. You just build a deep bond very, very fast, because what you do in theater is vulnerable. You're being up there with the microscope on you, and it's a little terrifying. So you really have to have trust with the people you're up there with, that they'll be there for you. And so I fell in love with that as well. The bonds that were formed. And I was like, ooh, that's fun. And there's the art form, although I didn't learn. But anyway, my teacher, she introduced me to Shakespeare early, and then improvisation. But Shakespeare, I did like we have here, I did the Pittsburgh Shakespeare monologue competition, won it my senior year. And then I said, what if I tried to do this acting theater thing in life? My parents were absolutely terrified, but anyway, I decided, let's give it a try. And so I studied it in undergrad, and I got to go to the British American Drama Academy for a year in London and study really conservatory style Shakespeare there, and just fell in love with it. And then, the rest is history.
Yeah, that's great. I have a friend, so 8th grade was and I talked to Michael about this on the last episode, so I won't kind of go into it way too much, but I have a friend that him and I were in a play in 8th grade, and then kind of theater. I kind of was off and on, because some of the quirkiness of theater and some of the preconceived notions that even I had, even though I loved it, but very similar to you, it was very much a way for me to channel my class clownness as well. But my friend, from what I remember, he teaches theater and does all that and is a teacher now in it and loves it. And as a matter of fact, him and I were messaging the other day. I'm like, do you remember the name of our drama teacher? Because we called it drama. Some places call it drama theater.
Yeah, absolutely.
But those experiences were so fun. Like I can remember so vividly, especially the first play that I was in. It just, for me, was just eye-opening. So I'm actually curious to hear about your first play and what it did for you and what you learned from it or whatever.
Oh my goodness.
Do you remember it?
Oh yeah, of course. Oh boy. Yeah. Well, the first full-length play, weirdly, believe it or not, and I'm not sure if it was legal, was a stage adaptation of The Princess Bride. Oh. Supposedly, I don't know if this is true, Mrs. Bruno wrote William Goldman, the brilliant William Goldman who wrote it, and said, can I do this for, it's like free. It's at our high school. Supposedly he gave permission. I don't know if
I don't doubt it.
Yeah, but he's awesome. So maybe he did. And so I played Prince Humperdinck.
Oh, great.
And so, I just had, that story is glorious, as everyone knows. Yeah. And, and it was some horrible acting as I think back on it. I mean, I was just schmacting and just hamming and just
like over the top.
Well, yeah, giving everything an evil lilt to it of the pits of despair, and would like literally look out at the audience and like just garbage. I remember
it was fantastic.
Well, it was horribly fantastic. And then I remember we had Monty Python style. We had our horses, because it's very medieval. Our horses were the picture of a horse taped onto a yardstick, and so
we were doing the clock,
we'd gallop on with the coconuts. But I remember that improv spirit. Now you got to be careful with this, but like I remember, just in performance, never did it in rehearsal, unsheathed the sword, handed it to my 6-fingered man to hold for a second, took my horse, sheathed the horse, and like people lost their minds, and then took back my sword. And so I was like, oh, this is really fun. And so, like many people, I got hooked on the laughter, and I was like, oh, this is nice.
Yeah.
So that's what got me. And then over time, I learned like the layers of the onion of what acting actually is and what the art form is, and then really fell in love with that. But that was the beginning. Yeah. What was your first show?
It was called Phantom of the Soap Opera. So Michael and I talked about this a little bit, and it was a farce. It was a lot of fun. I was the detective that was trying to solve the crime of who the Phantom was. My friend that I was talking about, he was the director of this soap opera going on, and we were trying to catch who this Phantom guy was, and the director had ulcers. I remember that, and he was always drinking milk. I do remember though the laughter that you talk about. Yeah. Because for me, and I'm still this way, people that know me well, I'm always saying something smart aleck. I often have to apologize for my smart aleck off the cuff comments. But for me, it was like a positive reinforcement of kind of getting that energy out, being that funny guy. I remember after the play, all these little kids, and I was only in 8th grade, so they had to be like little elementary kids. But all these little kids came up and were like, can I have your autograph? And I thought I was so cool.
Yeah, that's
just because it was fun. But these kids, because I was always a small guy. Yeah. And I always felt like a little kid, especially amongst my peers. I always felt like a little kid. So it was like different for me to have these younger kids kind of like looking up to me and everything. But the one thing I remember about that play is one of the performances, we had 2 scenes in the first and second act that were like the flow of them were almost identical. And I remember starting to do the second act flow during the first act. I'm sure you've experienced this. Yeah. And I had I had a hammer or something, and I accidentally left it out on stage. And rather than just letting stage crew pick it up later, I'm like, oh, that's going to ruin. So I walked out just like kind of improving, and I grabbed the hammer and I look at the audience and I go, hammer. Yeah. And then I didn't actually say it, but I walked off stage and my
hammer time.
exactly. My director was like, you don't need to do that. Stage crew will get that next time. But it threw off the whole groove. But I just remember it was a lot of fun. My high school experience, there wasn't as much opportunity in high school for me.
Seemed like a good idea at the time though, right?
It did, yeah.
And those goofs, you gotta make a decision quick.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the right decision.
Yeah, sometimes it's not. Sometimes like, oh crud, sorry about that, guys.
That's so cool.
So then from that first experience, where did you go from there? You know, you said you thought maybe I could try this acting thing.
Oh, yeah.
For me, I was always too scared to take any artistic thing. I was too practical. For as much as fun loving as I was also too scared because the practical side of me just won over.
Sure.
But I've loved watching people like yourself and others that I know who like, I'm going all in on this and watch them turn it into a fun career. I mean, my career is fun too, just not quite in the fun way that you get to experience.
Clearly you get to do this awesome creative stuff.
I know.
This is so cool. Like,
I appreciate Dallas saying, hey, Dave, we should do this podcast so that I can get a little creativity out of there. But tell me about that walk and those steps to whether study it in college and go professionally. Because, you know, when people think of actors, they think of the starving actor, right?
Yeah. Which is real. No, I get you. And then that battle with the practical and is very much has always been in me because of my upbringing, and it still is today. And so I can speak to that in a second. So it very much resonates with what you're saying. Yeah. To me. So then once I went to undergrad, I went to Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio, a good liberal arts college. Was going to study, major in theater. And that's where I began studying like the craft and like what in the greats and reading all the books. And I realized quick, I was like, I haven't been doing this since I was 5. I'm not one of those actors. Oh dear, I've got a lot of ground to cover.
So you grabbed a skull and just carried it around with you, quoting Hamlet all the time after that.
Well, but I do crazy things where I would
teasing, but
no, but like I was like, because I'm also a bit obsessive. So I was like, I would go to the library just after the classes and just read. And so I read all the greats, the Stanislavskis and the Adlers and the Lee Strasbergs and all the like Meisners, and just read all the books.
Wow.
And don't get me wrong, that's not how you become a great actor. You have to do it. But these are the gurus, the geniuses that created modern acting as we know it.
Right.
And so reading those novels actually did create a foundation that I'm very proud of, that I became obsessed with. So anyway, dove into that and then just did as many shows as I possibly could, got to study in London and got to see 2 shows a week in London, which was just life-changing because the theater is great here, but it's so incredible there as well. And the Shakespeare's just top notch. And then, after, and like in the way you're talking about practical, the challenge of this career is there's no direct path. Yeah. It's not like, then I go to medical school and then I do this and then I do that residency and then I get my job here. And so I'd read all the actor biographies to be like, okay, well, how did Pacino do it? How did Cary Grant do it? How did so-and-so do it? Try and find some level of comfort. None of that helps you because that's just how they did it. Right. So it just gives you one example, but I kept trying. So anyway, then I do what you do, which is you just start making moves and you try things. And so I moved to Los Angeles after undergrad. My advisor in undergrad said, you're going to have to go to grad school eventually. It's what a lot of people do. But she says, so you might want to try LA first. So I tried LA, did a bunch of independent film, did improvisation there. But the theater scene is not huge in LA, or at least the theater I could get into wasn't huge. And I was desperately missing Shakespeare and I was missing theater. I was driving down to Orange County every summer, 2 hours, switching 6 highways so that I could do Shakespeare at Shakespeare Orange County. Wow. I was desperately missing it. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go New York, but on the way, I'm going to go to grad school. And I got into the National Theater Conservatory, which used to be part of the Denver Center, the big theater in Denver. On my way, my mother and I filled up my Honda Civic. We drove and we looked at the line and we said, oh, wait, we're going through Cedar City.
Oh, yeah.
And so I got my first visit to the festival.
That was going to be one of my questions.
Which is so cool. Yeah. So
about what year was that?
2007 or 8. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And I got to, was with my mother. We did the rep, we did all the shows. I remember distinctly seeing a production of Othello in the Adams Theater, like 4th row on the right. the orchestra. I'm trying to remember the name of the actor. Jonathan Earl Peck, James Earl Peck, and Jonathan maybe playing Othello, and just that gorgeous, heartbreaking final scene with Desdemona in his arms and just tears streaming down his face, and just I was like, "Whoa, yeah, this is great. This is a movie. This is incredible." Yeah. And of course it's USF, so it's all the things that lead up to it. The green show, the atmosphere. I like, because Fred Adams is Fred Adams. I got to shake his hand because he just met everybody, And I remember meeting Scott too, and just incredible. So it really stuck with me, and that was amazing. So then I got to grad school. I learned a lot there, and that's where the real foundation was formed. Like that's where they break you down and they beat you down and they borderline abuse you, but they're going to make you a good actor in the end. And it was incredible. I met my wife there in grad school. Now she's a Utah gal, Caitlin. She went to BYU, incredible actor. She even got offered a role in the season in 2010. She was going to be in Mackers and Merchant of Venice, but she couldn't do it because of grad school. Oh, wow. But she grew up going to the competition here. So really loves it. And and anyway, but that's where I got to know David Ivers, former artistic director, because he was a Denver Center Company member. In fact, we were in a production of Othello together when he got the call that he was going to be co-artistic director with Brian. Oh, wow. So it was really cool. And I was so happy for him and whatnot. And then, anyway, so then after that, moved to New York City and was an actor after grad school, just living out of a suitcase like you do. Oh, yeah. But sorry, to give you the full story, then in 2015, I got a call from a theater that I had acted in and worked at several times called Creede Repertory Theater in Colorado. And they said, would you like to join our staff as associate artistic director? And where we were.
They just called you out of the blue?
Yeah, because I'd done a lot of work with them. I guess they were looking to expand their team.
Yeah, that's great.
And they said, we could maybe entice him this could be a good fit. Yeah. Because I knew the artistic director well, and we really had a good trust with each other. And so we thought we could be a good partnership. And anyway, and my wife and I said, yeah, let's do it. So we moved from New York City, crazy New York City, to the smallest little mountain town in Colorado. Yeah. Where it's 400 people in the dead of winter. Yeah. It's 9,000 feet elevation. Yeah. It's an hour from the nearest Walmart. It is remote. But then in the summer it explodes with tourism because it's so beautiful. And anyway, that's where I worked and eventually became the producing artistic director. And that's where I got my chops when it came to being an administrator. Yeah. And to go full circle, to wrap up, that when I discovered administrative side of theater is where actually everything came into place for me. The practical, the mix of that. I understand a spreadsheet, like that side of me intersected with the artist finally. And it was like, oh, this is because the life of a freelance working actor is so hard. There's so much rejection. You're going to get a no 49 out of 50 auditions. Yeah. And it just breaks you down. And so having a little bit of control freak in me and being aware of that, I was like, oh, well, this is a way I could maybe sustain in this profession that I love so much. Right. And it's proven to be that. And then finally, when I got this job, man, like just what a dream job. And my parents finally got a good night's sleep for the first time in 20 years. Well,
that's fantastic. And that really goes, actually, sorry, I keep, cause my mind's fresh on when Michael came on the podcast last week is he talked about how a lot of parents and individuals like me, because I had mentioned the same thing. I was too practical to really kind of follow any kind of artistic route. And he mentioned how he tells parents, don't worry if that's what your kid wants to, because there are so many avenues where they find they will click. It's not just the starving actor. I mean, we've talked about people that do sets, props, costumes. You've talked about the managerial side, the actors, there's just so many areas where you can go in that industry that can and you'll find where you click. And I think that's really fun to be involved with it. I remember and I can't remember if I said this last week, but I remember there was a guy, when I was between jobs one time, I took a random summer job of a amphitheater, and I was the house manager of the amphitheater. And I would, during the shows, whether they're, bands playing or some sort of theater performance, I would go back by the lighting guys and just kind of watch the show and kind of keep an eye on the house. And I remember these lighting guys, they didn't care at all about anyone. They wanted to hunker down and not ever be seen. But their skills on those light boards, like, you know, sometimes we would get at the amphitheater shows who didn't have their own like lighting programming, you know, it's just whatever the house did. And this guy would put on a full like show, coordinate it with exactly their music, not really having heard the music before. And I was just blown away. And I think a lot of the artistry that you see at Utah Shakespeare Festival and theater in general, that's part of the cool part about live that I even like more than the film side of acting. Not that I've ever done the film side of acting, but you hear all the time, all these film actors be like, well, I didn't even have the full script, or I didn't even see it until after the movie came out with everybody else. But theater, you get to see the whole thing. You're rehearsing the whole thing. You get to be part of the artistic vision. You know, you're working with that artistic director to say, hey, you know, I have these thoughts about this. Not that, you know, and you're working with your director, but whether you're the actor or you're the lights guy or the props guy or the costume, you know, woman or whatever the case is. Anyways, I'm really blabbing now.
No, I'm with you. I mean, there's 300 people in the seasonal company for Utah Shakes. It takes that many people, and you named many of the departments. They're all incredible at their art form, what they do. And some of that too is guest services and just keeping people safe and inviting them into the space and making sure their experience is smooth and positive and wonderful, celebratory. It takes such a village. And yeah, I mean, that's why it's so fun. It's the collaboration, and that's, you build some really tight bonds. Yeah. It's addictive in a way. Yeah. That whole thing. And yeah, I love it so much.
Oh, one thing that I really liked that you talked about earlier, and you kind of dabbled in this a couple times, like when you were talking about reading all the books, and then you're talking about, you know, when you got here, you talked about you went on stage so you can have that perspective. What I like is that you do have the perspective of the actors and some of the different individuals in their different roles. That's always helpful, right?
Yeah.
So how does that translate as you're working with the starving actors, the union actors, the non-union actors, as you're trying to, you know, come up with these contracts and for lack of a better word, recruit, right? I mean, you're recruiting these actors. I don't know if there's different terminology you guys use, but
casting or hiring.
Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. As you're casting the actors, talk about maybe that process of casting actors, because that's a whole different beast in and of itself. And the union thing, you know, the term union, again, politically can sometimes have scary, you know, like connotations to them. Sure. But what are the distinctions, and why do they have some of those things in place, and how does that impact your planning? Because you talked about a year and a half, 2 years out, you got to plan these things. No doubt.
And I'll answer the casting question. I'll just speak for 1 second to what you were talking about before. Like you were talking about, I think, some of the like cultural vibe you want of like a workplace, you know what I mean? And I think the USF, it probably always has been this, but I'm new. So we're like trying to cultivate a theater that is large, but also feels like a small theater in the sense that it's leadership's accessible. You're not afraid to come and give feedback about anything. Please, like, how can we be better here? How could your experience be better? You know, that's really, really important. And so we're trying to create an atmosphere where any employee, anybody feels like they can contribute to build the place, you know? So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. But anyway, to the complexity of casting, there's nothing like it. So this is rep theater. So every actor.
Yeah, redefine rep theater, or maybe that's where you're going. Very brief.
So rotating repertory theater is a format that was widespread across the country, 60 years ago, 70 years ago, and very few theaters still do it because it's just so hard. There's so many moving parts. It's where a company is learning multiple shows, and every night they are changing out the set of that show and presenting a different show the next day, or maybe between a matinee and an evening performance, and where the actors are in multiple shows at once. So every actor in the company will be in 2 to 3 shows. Most are in 3 shows. In addition to that, they're also learning understudy roles. They're learning parts of other actors in case they get sick, so they could step in. We have approximately 50 actors in the company. It's we try to find a balance of, you might be a lead in this show, you might be a supporting part in this show, and you might be an ensemble of this show. So that kind of sort of balances their workload a little bit. They also will have understudy assignments, most of them. Of our actors, 50 actors, 16 to 18 of them are union actors, Actors Equity Association. The rest are non-equity. So that means they make a little bit of a different pay rate, and they earn health and pension as part of their salary, their weekly salary. So that's the difference there. But we really, in terms of work hours and things like that, we try to make that equitable across the board. We try. But yeah, it also, it does lots of helpful things. It protects the number of hours they can work in a week, et cetera, things like that. But anyway, auditions. So we will ask directors, first off, we'll say, okay, this is Shakespeare. So the casts are like 30 characters, but we have approximately this number of actors that can be in each show budgetarily. We can't do 30. We could do 18. We could do 20. How would you like to double cast? That means, one actor is going to have to play 2 roles. What roles would you like them to play? Because you could be anything. Yeah. So they'll provide that. That'll help guide us. Then we'll create a breakdown that goes out on our website to the country. And we have EPA, Equity Principal Auditions, that's required. So we have those often in Los Angeles and in Cedar City. Those are in-person auditions. And then we also do a video audition component. So in person, we'll see about 300 people. Video auditions, we got 1,200 auditions this year. So 1,500 people in total.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And that's with the video window just being up for 6 days. Yeah. So it could have been more. So 1,500 auditions. And then in-house artistic team begins the process of whittling down those videos, so watching them slowly and getting that number down. And then there might be a component of some automatic offers that go to maybe returning company members. We try to have about 2/3 returning alumni, be it from any of past seasons coming back, because they bring a wealth of knowledge. They understand the rigor of rep theater. They're beloved by audiences. So all these sort of reasons, it's important to bring folks back. And then, so then we'll make some offers, but then we begin, in the initial auditions, they do monologues. So just a Shakespeare monologue and a contemporary monologue, and maybe they sing 16 bars. That's how we whittle that down. And then we begin with sides from the plays. So if it's like Importance of Being Earnest, they might do a side between Jack and Algy. We'd like to see you read for Jack. And so they would prepare for a couple of days, and they'd make a video and they'd send that in. We'd share the video with directors. If we're on the fence about something, we might do a live Zoom callback, because this actor might be in Orlando, they might be in Los Angeles, New York. And so we sometimes do a live Zoom callback. And then eventually we'll make some offers, and it can take months, because the rep is so complicated, because there's this matrix where it's like, well, they can be in this show and this show, but they can't be in this show because these shows play opposite each other. Oh yeah. So it's not completely open. It's closed off in some ways. Interesting. It's quite a headache. It's wonderful. Which is why you have to plan it out so far in advance too, right? It takes that months. Pure process. Yeah. And then there's the conundrum though, that like this director might say, man, I want that person for my Macbeth. Yeah. But this director might say, yeah, but I didn't think they were a great fit over here. And it's like, oh, great. Well, now what do we do? Yeah. You know what I mean? Because so the directors are talking too. They're weighing in. Granted, the end decision does live with in-house artistic with myself. Tanya plays a role as well. So it does live in-house, because we got to have that tiebreaker. Yeah. But directors can weigh in, certainly. How do you choose your directors? Because it sounded like directors come from all over the place. Yeah, they come from all over. It's a combination of 3 things. Returning trusted festival alums. So like people that just are incredible to work with, but trusted people from my network, but also then trying to bring in some brand new blood, and like having interviews and saying like, and by the way, so it's also looking at the show. What's the requirements of the show? Who might bring the right energy to that piece? And they specialize in this or that, or, so it's really trying to align the right person with the right show, so that we're telling a proper story. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, okay. So let's I think as a wrap up, tell me what shows you have this coming season. Sure. And then maybe let's dive in a little bit, a little synopsis on each show. Great. Absolutely. So let's start in Shakespeare Land in the Engelstad Theater.
Okay.
Engelstad Shakespeare Theater.
That's our live outdoor theater.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's very much in that Fred Adams vein of where there's a well-known comedy, a well-known tragedy, and a lesser-known work here. So first in our comedy, great romance as well, As You Like It. It's been just such a beautiful show. For those who don't know this synopsis, there's upheaval in the kingdom, and the old king has been overthrown, and the daughter of that king, Rosalind, is the main character, has been banished to the forest of Arden, as is the former king and all his team and whatnot. Meanwhile, there is another plot of Orlando, a young man who is also having family troubles, and he has to flee for his life also into the forest of Arden, where Rosalind and Orlando find each other. So it's this really cool piece about how in the forest, all these titles go away because everyone's just living in the forest, and it doesn't matter. And so all those societal rules go away, and it's this place where people kind of discover what they're made of, but their truest selves too. And they discover what they want in life, who their love might be, and this and that. It's very funny, but it's very loaded with beautiful romance. So that show's going to be a real crowd pleaser. And then we have in our tragedy slot, Macbeth.
The ultimate tragedy.
The ultimate tragedy. I'm directing that show. I've been reading it nonstop for the last year, and I'm like, yeah, this is the ultimate tragedy. Like the darkness, the dark places that script goes to is like remarkable. It's been, it's just a beloved title. So many people it's their favorite. It's got witches, it's got blood, it's got, we're overthrowing the king and this and that. And it's just incredible. By the time this airs, I can say it. So who's going to be our Mackers and our Lady M? So Walter Camise, who played Benedict in Much Ado About Nothing, is going to be back to play Macbeth, which I'm so excited for. Cassandra Bissell, who was Queen Catherine, was Titania in Midsummer Night's Dream the year before. She's back to be Lady Macbeth. Two incredible actors. Like Walt last year's Benedict. I've never seen someone with more mastery of this complex language. Yeah. Like he literally had the audience, and I'm sorry you missed it because I know it's one of your favorites.
I know when you mentioned Benedict, I'm like, why did I miss this?
He just had the audience like with him every line, and I could not believe it. Similar, Cassandra, when she would exit after the big court scene in Henry VIII, she got applause every night. One night someone yelled out, "You go, girl," after she told off Henry VIII and said what it's all about. And so I just can't wait to see them together. And this ultimate couple.
Yeah, in Macbeth.
So
of all things.
That's going to be so fun. So I just cannot wait. It's going to be a wild ride. Then part of our Complete the Canon series, Antony and Cleopatra. So it's been a while. It's been last performed 2006, so almost 20 years. And it's the epic tale of those two title characters, Antony, Cleopatra, the Queen of Egypt. It follows around their love affair and the political turmoil that follows that love affair as the choices they make. It's a mature love story. They're a little bit older. They say it's like the older Romeo and Juliet in a way, which is lovely. Spoiler alert, it's got some epic death. It's a tragedy. So we all know everyone's going to die at the end. But yeah, some of the most epic deaths in the canon, or the most iconic ones. I guess I'll leave it there. Okay. But it's filled with desire and their love affair and whatnot. So it's got like a little sexiness to it, that show. And I'm really, really excited for that cast as well, but I won't talk too much about that. But a lot of returners are coming back for that, which is going to be great. So anyway, Antony and Cleopatra. Then in the Randall Theater. So I mentioned we've got the musical. So Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder. It's going to be an absolute romp. So fun. If you love Gilbert and Sullivan music, come on out. You'll have an absolute blast with that. Then we have perhaps the funniest play ever written, The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde. I'm
so looking forward to this. It is so good. The title itself is witty.
Oh yeah. No.
You the name of the main character.
Oscar Wilde puts us all to shame. Like you will go to that and you'll be like, how do these people think like that? But that's literally how Oscar Wilde thought and spoke. Yeah. And so he's written some of the most brilliant characters, and it's a satire on London society in the 1890s and how serious everyone took themselves in this Victorian world. But at the end of the day, we all just want love, and we just want to find that person that we can be our partner through life or whatever, you know, that's all we want. And it's what they wanted then too. Yeah. And so that's part of the loveliness of it. But at the same time, like we are today, they're distracted by all the wrong things, by fashion or by who they think they should be in love with, but who are you actually in love with and things like that. So it has a resonance. But it's, and the characters are iconic, but the great Lady Bracknell of that role, oh my goodness. Whatever, I'm going to just spoil. It's going to be played by Sarah Shippobotham, who was in A Silent Sky last year, who just is a scene stealer, and she is going to be back to play that role. And I cannot wait to see her in that. So anyway, Importance of Being Earnest, got to come out for that. Last performed 20 years ago, but it was only a fall show, so not that many people get to see it. So
I am so glad, because that's one of my favorites. Yeah. I remember the first time, I think there's like an old school, maybe there's a couple old school movies of it, and somebody showed it to me, and I'm like, what is this movie? It just cracks me up so bad.
Yeah.
But
and the whole Randall season, like the Engelstead has a weight to it, and then the whole Randall season is just loaded with comedy. Yeah. So then Robert Harling's Steel Magnolias. So that great show set in Truvy's Beauty Salon in Louisiana, Chinkapin Parish, Louisiana in the 1980s. So it's a fun celebration of the 80s hair, 80s style. Wait. Yeah. But it's the beloved story. If people are familiar with the movie, but you've never seen the play, you got to come out, because it's very different. It's just the women in that beauty salon. And it's, to be honest, the movie's wonderful, but it's even stronger as a play. And interesting. It's that beautiful, it's just about sisterhood, the love between those women, how they take care of each other. It's about small town community, small town gossip. It's a beautiful story about sacrifice and wanting to start a family, and what that can take and what you might have to sacrifice. And it's hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious. I like it. Like, it's just as witty as Oscar Wilde, but it's like 100 years later. So come on out for that. And then we just added a show a month ago, which is really exciting, to the Ames Theater, the Black Box Intimate Theater there. Dear Jack, Dear Louise by Ken Ludwig. Okay. So for those folks who don't know, the quick summary, Jack Ludwig is an Army doctor stationed in Oregon. He begins writing to Louise Rabiner, who is an aspiring actress in New York City. So they're spread across the country, and they become pen pals with each other. And they start falling in love via their letters. Their sparks are flying. But then Jack gets sent overseas to be on the front lines in Europe because he is an Army doctor. And so it follows, they continue writing each other through the war, never having seen each other yet, never having met, but just falling deeper in love through these letters. Yeah. So it's about isolation and the challenge of war, and the just how heartbreaking that is, but trying through that to find connection with someone, to feel less isolated, and they find it in each other. And spoiler alert, this is because this play is the true story of Ken Ludwig's parents. There's going to be a happy ending. Yeah. They meet each other for the very first time in Times Square on VE Day after the war. And it's this beautiful celebratory ending. You laugh, you cry. It's a great show for the Ames Theater. So.
I am so excited for this season, to be quite honest. There's several of these shows that you guys are doing that I've never got to see live, but I know all about. I've read the plays or whatever the case is, seen a movie version or whatever, but I've never got to see live. So I'm really excited about this season. Fantastic. People coming out.
Yeah, I hope everyone comes out. I encourage everyone to go go see a few shows, see all the shows, go to the Grove afterwards, talk about it, do the full experience. It's worth it.
Okay. Well, I guess just to close, tell me your why. Why theater? We've talked a lot about your passion, but why theater and why Shakespeare Festival? And we've kind of dabbled into that a little bit in our discussion, but that's kind of where I want to end.
Yeah. There's so much to the why, but where to begin?
It's a broad question. I know.
Yeah. Let me, I'll jump around a little bit. Like, on the personal first, why theater, why Shakespeare, and then expand it out a little bit to like being part of this greater theater here. Or on the personal, I talked a bit about, discovering the power of ensemble, discovering the power of, being an outlet to express oneself. But really, the theater, What's different from film, television, Netflix, the couch, is you're experiencing storytelling live. And so you're getting to see, I mean, this sounds obvious, but you're getting to see humans standing up on stage, and you're there, and we're all breathing the same air. And you're getting to see these characters make decisions. They're coming to crossroads, just like we come in our lives, and they're making some good decisions and some bad decisions. And you get to witness, you get to see them test out. You get to kind of test out life through them, as Lauren Gunderson put it. And if they're good actors, they're vulnerably sort of open to the material. And if it's Shakespeare, it's the most beautiful poetry ever written. And so they're opening their hearts to this material. And so they're empathetically opening up their emotions to this material. And you get to witness that as well. And then as a result, it opens up your heart and the audience. You will feel something. You will go through a journey yourself. And because our brains are smart, but they're not that smart, you learn, you change through that experience, because your brain almost doesn't know any different. You know, if it will feel that heartbreak, it'll feel that longing, it'll feel that resolution, that happy ending, it'll experience it. So part of my why is, it's been since the beginning, it's a safe place to feel. And I love feeling great emotion. And maybe it's rolling in the aisles with laughter. And how beautiful is that right now?
Yeah.
Let's laugh together. Let's laugh with our families. Let's keep talking about Michael Doe doing that silly character forever, right?
Yeah.
Like that too, like that shared experience of emotion. That's part of my why. And then theater, to expand it out for a second, I would say anybody who's been to the Utah Shakes knows that like it is dripping in community. You are just surrounded by people. And we're trying to carry that torch that Fred Adams, he greeted everyone. He knew everyone's name, or at least he was really good at faking it, right? Or remembering everyone. And so you came and you just felt like, oh, I'm home again, or I'm at my cultural home again. That place where I'm inspired, or I'm nurtured, or I'm provoked, or I'm moved. I'm at that place again. And I think that's so important in the world right now. And I think that's why, tens of thousands of people come back every year to this place, because it's been that place for them for decades. And I want to continue that into the future. So
that's wonderful. Well, John, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's good to get to know you a little bit more. So I'm sure we'll have you on again for the different seasons to talk about what's up and coming. But John DiAntonio, the artistic director of Utah Shakespeare Festival, thank you.
Thank you. What a pleasure. And I would love to come back in the future.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, thanks.